Recently, the NFR podcast has gone viral for making a video saying that they can name 100 rappers better than Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi Vert. And while I inherently don't disagree with all of the names that they listed in the video and some of the points that they made, I think that the reaction from the hip hop community on both sides has been very alarming, to say the least. I think that there's a very clear disconnect between newer and older fans, because a list like this shouldn't divide the community as much as it has in recent time. Today, I'm going to be going over some of the reasons why I think the community is currently in a state of complete ignorance, and why I think this NFR podcast clip that's been making the rounds is the perfect example as to why I think there's a lot of problems we need to sort out. So the one big point that I think that a lot of the fan bases on both ends are kind of missing right now is that there is a very skewed definition of what hip hop music currently is. If you're going to ask someone who's over the age of 30 or 35, a lot of names that are going to come to their head are probably like Eminem, Kanye West, Jay-Z, a lot of the artists that they grew up with over the years. And on the other end, if you're going to ask a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid what their definition of hip-hop music is, they're probably going to say like Ken Carson or Destroy Lonely. And while neither of these answers are wrong, I think that one thing we all need to realize before we move any further into a discussion like this is everybody has a different definition of what hip-hop is. Everybody listens to different subgenres. If you're going to look at a genre like rock music, and you're going to look at all of the subgenres that exist within it, like punk, like metal, like hard rock, like yacht rock, they're never going to be grouped into the same things. When you ask someone what their top 10 favorite rock bands are, they're not going to say a crazy list with the Eagles, Green Day, and all these other names on it from different genres. No, they're going to ask you, oh, do you mean punk music? Do you mean metal music? Do you mean hard rock music? And hip hop is kind of the only genre where we don't look at it like this. For some reason, we compare rappers from the 2010s with rappers from the late 80s. This, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense because there's been a lot of room for evolution over the years, and the game is obviously going to evolve. But I also think that it's just comparing apples to oranges here, because Illmatic sounds nothing like Future's Dirty Sprite 2, okay? There's no connection there. There's no real reason why we should be saying, this is good, therefore this can't be good. They're two completely different things, and a lot of fans need to start getting that around their head. So one thing about older fans that I find to be kind of funny is a lot of them will say, oh, well, hip-hop used to be great, but I stopped listening in 2005. And you know what? Like what you like, but if we're talking about a top 100 list here, if your list ends in 2005 or 2006, I don't really want to hear your opinion, to be honest, because you're missing about 20 years of the genre changing, a bunch of new influences. It just doesn't sit right with me. These are people who are completely dismissing the influence of a Chief Keef, of a Kanye West, of a Young Thug, of a Future on the current landscape of music. If you are going to take that portion out of music, that's 20 years of history. You just can snap away with your fingers like that. You can just dismiss it. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense if you're going to be commenting on a list about top 100 rappers. A lot of old heads, myself included, I mean, I'm pushing 30 at this point, like to look at the younger generation with a pair of eyes that they don't know what they're talking about. And this has been something that's happened every single generation, it seems, for probably the last 20 years. Every time there's a new crop of rappers, the younger people will say, oh, you just don't get it. And the older generation will dog on them and clown them for liking the music that they like. And that's not what I'm trying to do here today. What I'm trying to do here today is I'm trying to say a lot of these older listeners need to start listening to more music that's outside of their comfort zone. They need to get away from that 2005 kind of music, kind of style. Because if you're going to take away 20 years of hip hop history, you're going to miss the evolution of artists like Freddie Gibbs. You're going to miss Pusha T's fantastic solo career. And you're going to miss a ton of 10 out of 10 albums from newer artists who you never would have listened to behind your own ignorance and your own bias towards newer music. Now, on the other end of the spectrum here, we have to take a look at the newer fans of hip hop as well. And this is one that I'm going to tread very lightly around because everyone has been a new fan to the genre at some point, and everyone had to discover a lot of these artists for themselves at a certain point as well. The problem with fans in recent years, though, is that they will only listen to 5 or 6 rappers that they really like, that they really connect with, and they throw everything else out the window. I hate to say this, but the SoundCloud era of music really changed the way that we listen to music. A lot of artists had unreleased demos or leaked versions of their songs go onto the platform, meaning that there's thousands of songs that aren't on DSPs that fans can now listen to any point. And because of this, we saw artists like Uzi, like Juice WRLD, and like Playboi Carti get these massive fan bases because there's thousands of people who are going to be sitting in these comment sections waiting on these leaks, waiting on these, high quality versions of songs to be released to Discord servers. And it's completely changed the way that a lot of younger people listen to music. Because why would you go on to a platform like Spotify or Apple Music and listen to 3 albums by an artist like Juice WRLD when there's 1,500 songs of his that are unreleased on SoundCloud? The disconnect that starts with this problem, though, lies in the fact that when you consume so much of one artist and all you consume is media of that artist, of course you're going to think they're in a top 5 or a top 10 list. When you look at everybody who listens to the genre, this probably isn't going to be the same thing. A lot of these newer fans will only listen to music that's been released within the last couple of years. They'll listen to featured artists who are on songs from the artists they do like, and that'll be their new way of finding music. Because of this, it dismisses, again, 10 to 15 years worth of hip-hop music that they wouldn't have listened to otherwise, meaning the 2000s, the 90s, and the early 2010s are irrelevant to them. One thing I disagree with a lot of younger people is they're taking this kind of line from the NBA saying, oh, we're done with the 90s. We're not done with the 90s. We're absolutely not done with the 90s. We're not comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan here, okay? Nas released Illmatic when he was 17 years old, okay? Lil Uzi Vert has not made an album like Illmatic, and I'm saying that, okay? You can't say Lil Uzi Vert versus The World is on the same level as Illmatic. You just can't say that, okay? But again, we're comparing apples to oranges here. I'm not saying either album is bad, but I'm saying that the quality of music is definitely noticeable. And I'm not telling you that you need to listen to this. I'm not saying you need to enjoy it. I'm just saying you need to respect it at the very least, because none of the music that you like right now would have ever happened if there wasn't someone who came before who was doing something different. And that's something that a lot of the newer generation needs to start remembering, because at the end of the day, the genre didn't start with the 5 artists that you like to listen to, okay? Music does get better outside of leaked songs and really low quality unreleased songs, okay? There's plenty of good albums that are waiting to be listened to by you, and if you need to go dive into the genre a little more or get your feet wet a little more, there's lists online that you can follow, and you're probably not going to like everything, but you'd probably be lying if you said you wouldn't be able to find anything that you'd like. This is no longer a discussion that we can have as 2 different sides of a fan base of the same genre. We need to stop getting into arguments with people who don't know anything about the type of music that you listen to, and you need to stop arguing with people who you don't know anything about their type of music, okay? If you're one of the people who listen to both, great. You have every right to an opinion on either end of this argument, absolutely. What we need to stop doing is attacking people for their choice of certain things. If you have a certain artist higher on your list as opposed to somebody else, that's completely fine. That's your list. If somebody else has that artist at a different point higher, something you disagree with, you do not need to attack their character. You do not need to attack them. You don't know what kind of experiences this person has with that artist's music. It's something that's been completely unfair, and I think it's one of the most toxic parts of the community that I've seen in recent years, and it's only getting worse because people are saying these super outlandish things, saying, oh, whoever gave this guy an opinion, whoever gave this guy an idea to have a podcast. At the end of the day, it's their list. Who cares? You have your list, I have my list. And that's something we need to understand, is that nobody is going to have the perfect list. Nothing's going to be perfect in your mind, my mind, anybody's mind. Thank you.